Hello everyone, I'm Angie Swartz and I'm delighted to be here today at the beautiful Rancho Valencia Resort in Rancho Santa Fe, California to interview Edward Cozza, writer, about his new book, Nowhere Yet. Hello Ed.
It's great to see you, Angie. How are you today?
It's great to see you. It's great to see you. We've known each other a long time in our corporate careers and I'm delighted to be here interviewing you today about your second career as an author and your first book.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here talking about the second career. The first one was a lot of fun, but this one seems to be more rewarding, so I think I'll enjoy this a lot more.
That's exciting, very exciting. So before we get started, can you tell everyone, is the book available now?
The book will be available in a couple of weeks at Warwick's Bookstore in La Jolla, California, and shortly thereafter will be available online at all the online book outlets.
Great. And do you have a website?
I have a website. It's edwardcozzawriter.com.
Great, edwardcozzawriter.com. And we didn't talk about this earlier today, but you've got a lot of good information out there on your website for people to come take a look at.
Well, we wanted to give people kind of an idea of what the book was about. And I don't want them so much to know that much about what I'm about. I want them to know the characters and things about the book, but just so they knew where some of the influence was coming from. We put some information out there on the site, and hopefully that'll give them an idea of where we're coming from.
I enjoyed getting your perspective by listening to some of the readings that you did on your website, and I would encourage everyone to go out and listen to those.
I do some short story things from time to time, or just some small snippets that we write just to kind of, I won't say writers, but I won't say the word, because if you get that, sometimes it's hard to get out of it. But every once in a while, just to write a short piece is good. Everyone used to call it throwaway poetry. Write poetry and not show anybody, just to kind of keep his mind moving in different directions at once. So that's where I got the idea.
Yeah, it's nice, and it's nice to be able to hear your words in your voice. So you mentioned Warwick's, our great local bookstore here in La Jolla, and you're doing a book launch with them.
Warwick's in La Jolla has been tremendous help over the years. And it's kind of been a base of operations where I buy my pens there, I buy my moleskin journals there, I would talk with the people that work there about books, about writers, and they were just, they couldn't have been more kind in their help with me throughout the project. I didn't know anybody there when I first started going in there, and they just have been really helpful. So the point of that, your independent bookstore where you live is kind of a mecca for all things literary. So they've proven that, and they're doing a book night for me, November 15th. Doors open at 7 o'clock, and the event begins at 7:30. So that's November 15th.
So book launch, November 15th,
Yes.
Warwick's of La Jolla,
Yes.
and anyone can come to that.
Anyone can come to that. I encourage you to come, bring your friends, family, come. Nothing better for the holidays than to buy a handful of books and help out support the arts, I guess. Help out a writer and support the arts.
Terrific. So people can come to La Jolla and bring a friend, and La Jolla is a beautiful city and lots to do down there.
Absolutely. Please come.
So let's talk about this book, Nowhere Yet. What kind of book is it?
It's a contemporary fiction, and it's very character-driven. Got some characters that I've come to know throughout the course of the writings here, and it's very character-driven and quite simple. I think people hopefully will enjoy the style that it's written in, that it's something that's easy for them to, one, get into, but also easy for them to associate with the characters and understand where the characters are coming from.
So what is the book about?
The book is about sort of a reunion and hope of redemption for a couple of friends who haven't seen each other in a long time, and they're former friends, former lovers, a couple of guys, a girl, and they get together after having been away from each other for a long time, and then things that generate as part of people not having seen each other in a long time and getting together again. So hopefully it's not too difficult for people to imagine. It's think of somebody who's very close to you and haven't seen them in a long time, and how would it be if you got together and haven't been away?
Right. Maybe some nostalgia in the book. Can you tell me three things, just a little bit of teasers, 3 things about the book?
As I said, kind of a reunion, some hope of reconnection, and some sort of introspection and resolve as a result. So people don't know how it's going to be when they get together after a long time, but the old feelings come to the top, and it makes you think about time that's passed. Where did everything go, and how did it go so fast?
Yeah, I like the points that you made when you were talking about the book earlier. You mentioned slowing down, a reminder to slow down and be mindful, which is one of my favorites, and just taking stock of your life.
One of the things that when I started writing this, I was traveling all the time. I was traveling for business. I was traveling all over the world, and just an inordinate amount of time by myself. And one of the ways that I thought that I could pass that time or spend that time, that one, didn't cost a lot of money, 2, didn't leave me feeling tragic the next morning, or that I would have to send blanket apology letters to the people involved the night before, was I just started writing while I was traveling. And the level of awareness that came with that was kind of surprising. And as I started writing and it became a bigger project than I had imagined, the concepts of mindfulness and self-awareness, they weren't the intention of the project, but it came out as a result of that.
So, great. And since you're talking about writing, I believe you told me you didn't write this book on a computer initially.
No, I actually studied that for a long time, not a real long time, but I was trying to decide, if I'm going to write a book, how should you start writing a book? And I said, well, it's a computer, I'll write it, I'll do it. And finally I said that I always have a pen, and I always have a notebook, and then I didn't have to worry about plugging in to write the book. I didn't have to worry about the stewardess telling me to put my pen down, that we're getting ready to take off, and that I could resume writing once we had gotten airborne. And so I wrote it, and still do, write in a journal, moleskin journal, or a pen, and then I transpose it into the computer. The writing part to me is easy. The editing is the difficult part. So
I bet there's a lot of other authors that would agree with the same sentiment on that.
yes, I would hope so.
So where does the book take place?
The majority of the book takes place in Palm Springs. Part of the book takes place here in Southern California, and but the majority, coastal Southern California, excuse me. The majority of the book takes place in Palm Springs for this long weekend. Friends getting back together after having not seen each other for several years. Takes place in Palm Springs.
Yeah, when I started reading your book and seeing your characters getting together at a 5-star resort in a resort town, it just makes you want to travel and get out of town.
Well, that part of the research, of course, didn't come with the business travel, because we didn't stay at 5-star resorts and stay at those kind of places. But when I did want to get away, Palm Springs was one place that I would get away, because I spent so much time traveling that the last thing I wanted to do was get on an airplane and go somewhere. So to just get away, my wife and take the dog, and we'd go to Palm Springs. 2 hours we would be there, not have to get on the plane, not have to claim baggage. So that's some of the research was done unintentionally, but it worked out that way.
So you had some personal experience.
Personal experience, yes.
With the city of Palm Springs.
Yes.
So for our viewers, can you tell me a little bit about what your book is most like that they might be familiar with?
Well, certainly as an author, first-time author, you don't want to compare yourself with anyone, because then I don't want to take liberties that I shouldn't. If you were to say it was like something, maybe The Big Chill, Sideways might be another one. where there's sort of a gathering of friends that hadn't been together in a long time, and along with that, there's sad things and happy things and funny things and good things all mixed together. There's seriousness, but there's also laughter as well. So I guess if you had to compare, those would be some things that you can compare it to.
Good.
I don't like to, like I say, as an author, I don't like to say, well, I want to compare myself to this writer, or this writer, or this writer. So hopefully you'll see why I said that. So.
Great. So you mentioned before that this book is character-driven. And is that the thing that's going to make us all fall in love with Nowhere Yet?
In my travels, and when I started writing this, it's just an inordinate amount of time when you're by yourself. And so you start out watching people that you don't know. You're spending so much time in an airport, on an airplane, in a restaurant, in a lobby, and somewhere, and you're noticing people talking, and you say, I wonder what they're talking about. And then you go from that to, after however many months or years that you've been traveling, saying, what if they were talking about this? And so you see people, and the thing that kept me from becoming bored or not enjoying my travel was dealing and talking with people. So I made the book, though not intentionally at first, be character-driven, because the human interaction and talking with people is what kept me enjoying the travel and enjoying the trips, to say, well, I saw this landmark or I saw that landmark. It, to me, was more, it made more of an impact that I had sat and talked with this person for a long period of time. So I try to make it character-driven and be characters that people could relate to, they could like, they could love, they could loathe, and the action of the characters, to me, is what I thought gave the book its life and made the book move on.
Yeah, well, from what I've read of the book, I already know who I don't want to hang out with in your characters, so you've done a good job of
Well,
that.
thank you. Part of that was intentional, part of it was not, but not all characters are characters that you enjoy or want to spend time with.
Oh, I didn't say I didn't enjoy them,
Okay.
but you mentioned characters to loathe, and I can see which ones that you're taking in that direction. So it's a lot of fun reading it. So tell us about the characters of the book a little bit. Don't give away too much.
I won't give away too much, because we still need to sell a couple of books. So there's a couple of main characters, a couple of fellows that have been friends for a good part of their life. Grant and Rex, they're from different parts of the United States. Grant's from the West and Rex is from the East. So there's a cultural conflict from the get-go. There's a former girlfriend that Grant was supposed to marry, Annie. She's one of the characters. And these characters haven't been together with each other in a long time. So Rex arranges a get-together in Palm Springs and gets Grant's old girlfriend to acquiesce and say she would attend. So, but there was madness. He wanted Grant to be there, so he figured if the woman came, that would be sure to get him there. So after that, a lot of things happen. I don't want to give it away, but it's as you could expect, people that care for each other a great deal and get together after a long period of time, getting back together, things they would say and things they would do. So.
And are they professional folks?
They're and it kind of goes back to the speed at which life is going. They're all professional people, but they've sort of hit kind of not a rock in the road, but they've stumbled a little bit, and they've gotten so busy with the business of managing life that they've all sort of stopped and said, I wonder if the best times have come and gone, and I certainly hope they haven't. So Grant was an attorney and chose not to go that route. Rex is also a professional person and has had some problems in his life. Annie's a doctor and is wondering if her life is going too fast. So it wasn't why they got together, it just all comes out when they do get together. The business of managing life makes it difficult to stop and take stock of what's going on.
And if I might ask you, any of the names of the characters come from anything significant in your life?
I just like the names. I just like the names. I'm sure there'll be some people say, "Hey, now wait a minute." So no, I just like the names. So not after anybody that I can admit to. So
not that you'll be witness to.
correct.
Okay. So are there any surprises in this book?
Well, I like to think there's some surprises in this book, but if I told you about the surprises, then in our soundbite world, you wouldn't need to buy the book. But I think there's some surprises in this book. So hopefully, when people buy the book, they will feel the same way.
So your answer is to all of us, we'll just have to wait.
We'll just have to see. I think so. We'll just have to see when we read the books.
So quite a teaser there. So there's a beautiful picture on the front of the book, and just looking at that makes you want to pick it up and read it. And we can spend a lot of time talking about the book, but if you don't mind, let's talk a little bit about you.
Talk a little bit about me. Well, there was a picture, a cover picture. A dear friend of mine, Paul Burlingame, took the photo. We were out in Palm Springs and took the photo out there, and I thought it captured what we were saying about the book and what the book entailed, what the book involved. So that was the impetus for the photo there. So he did a great job with the picture. As far as me, I've always wanted to write, and I've always written a little bit, but not ever decided to write a book. I started writing, decided I wanted to write some short stories and see how that goes. And I started writing a short story, and there was more than enough material came out that I didn't write the short story. I wrote the book and started writing, just kept on writing and wrote the book. So there wasn't, the short story didn't come out of it. The material just came together. So I felt blessed in that regard. So.
Yeah, you talked about your process for writing, writing in a moleskin journal with a real pen, and it seems like the writing process was a bit of a ritual for you, and maybe even part of your own healing process. And just wanted to bring that up again.
Well, certainly when I was traveling and you have all this time alone, and everybody says how glamorous it is to travel for business, it's interesting that you get to see things that you wouldn't have gotten to see otherwise, but you're also spending so much time by yourself that you find yourself turning to tell somebody, "Oh, look at that," but you're by yourself. There's nobody to tell it to. So when you're standing at these beautiful places, so it's really lonely and can be very depressing. And so I said, well, one way to pass the time and certainly feel good for me was to write. So I would do that, and I wanted it to be I never had to be reliant upon a quiet space. So in the airport, in the airplane, in the lobby, in the restaurant, in the bar, that the writing would take place, so there would not be, I'll be sure and write about that as soon as I get home in my favorite chair with my dog sitting next to me and that sort of thing. So that was always a release for me. I didn't realize at the time that the things that would come out of it, feelings towards other people, or my missing old friends, or not spending time with people. The book's not about me, but the feelings are such that I think anyone could or hopefully will relate to with regard to being separated from people you care about and being reconnected with those people.
Yeah, I think it's important to make note of the fact that you're living a little bit of the example that you talk about in the book for being mindful by the way that you wrote the book. And others should be encouraged to do what they love and not just follow suit from how everyone else lives their lives.
Well, I certainly learned from the process that though the intention originally might just be to tell a story, what you find through editing over and over and going back and forth, but you're distilling the essence of feelings that are there. So feelings of, gee, I wasn't mindful of these great things that were happening to me at the time, and then they come back around, or will they come back around? You kind of have a tug of war. Yes, this feeling or that feeling comes back around, or is it going to come back around? And so that comes out in the distilling the essence of what you write in the story.
Beautiful. Can I ask you who have been your major influencers in your creative process and your life?
As far as reading, I was looking for the book the other day. I had it since second grade. Now I can't seem to find it. I read a series of books when I was in second or third grade. A Cowboy Sam series. There was probably 30 of these books. I don't remember the author's name. I'll have to dig the book up. Mark Twain certainly was an influence. I remember reading Huckleberry Finn when I was young. I would go stay with my grandparents who lived lived in a town not that far from us, but I would go spend 2 or 3 weeks and stay with them, and we'd go fishing every day. So I read Huckleberry Finn at their house when I was growing up. Kurt Vonnegut in high school and college was a strong influence of great prose with a tongue-in-cheek sense of humor. Carl Hiaasen, a great humorous writer that I met here in La Jolla one time. Garrison Keillor, a fantastic storyteller. I met him one time here in San Diego and spoke with him. The humorous writers. Cormac McCarthy, serious writer. Thomas McGuane, serious writer. So those are literary influences on Ernest Hemingway, of course, all of his books. So those were literary influence on me that I didn't necessarily try to copy, but I tried to say, okay, take a little from all those. See what I learned from them.
Great. Some really great authors there. So, as you know, my business is Life Purpose Advisor, so I just have to ask you, do you think writing this book is a part of your life purpose?
Almost certainly. At the time, I wasn't so sure, and your business is I think, a wonderful thing that people don't realize or haven't realized the value of something like that they just go and they check the box every day, and the direction or the self-enrichment seems to get lost in the translation. So what you're doing is something that we all need, and that, as I say, at the beginning of the process, I didn't realize that was part of the thing, and now that I've written, that I've done it, that I've written the book, that I'm almost done with the second book, that it is part of the life purpose that you're involved in corporate America together previously. I've got friends that were in corporate America that we left the same week again, and it's not saying that it wasn't good or it was bad, but it was a different part of your life that now you say, this is more of a life purpose, that there's a message that you can get out and that you can tell people about. Designed to get a message out, but if somebody can stop and say, oh yeah, maybe I need to take the time to stop and look, then I think that's accomplished even more than what I set out to accomplish in the first place.
Well, very exciting to see what happens with book 2 and book 3, and for you personally as you continue to write them. But speaking of that, are you willing to give us a sneak peek into books 2 and 3?
Well, some of the characters, because it is a trilogy of sorts. Some of the characters from book 2 or from book 1 show up in book 2 from the beginning, and then there's new characters involved there. And then it takes place here in Southern California and also in New York. And then book 3, we're just going to have to see. I have in my mind how that's going to be, and then all the characters from the first book, and then of course the second book will all be reunited in book 3.
Great, and I think I have a hint as to why, but why did you choose New York City?
Well, I go there a lot. I used to go there for business, and then my wife and I like to go there just because it's so completely different than where we live in Southern California, that it's a different place, and it's just someplace that we can go. We both hate to just go somewhere and just lay around and do nothing. So it's a wonderful city to go. You're always going, you're always walking, you're always moving. And well, as much as I eat when I'm there, it's good that I'm walking because otherwise none of my clothes would fit worse than they do now. So, but love going to New York and spend a lot of time there. So, and I've made some dear friends there. Actually been very helpful in the book process and in the creative process. So I don't mind going back there as often as I can.
Great, great. So big question for you. There's lots of books and some crazy statistic like 95% of Americans want to write a book. Why should someone choose this book over everything else they have to choose from today?
Well, I think that I did this just as kind of to see if I could do it. It wasn't in the world we see now that somebody says, okay, I'm making this, or I'm building that, or I'm doing that. Everybody talks about an instant monetization of the product. That wasn't the goal. At first it was a goal of, can I do this? You go and you do it, and then you say, okay, yes, I can. Well, can you do it better? And then you work harder to get it better. And then you work even harder to get it better. And you think that when you're done, you say, well, we've worked so hard and done so much on this that hopefully people can read that and say, one, do they feel the message or they hear that they should be mindful in their lives and take time to stop and take stock of the wonderful life that they have. And two, maybe they want to write a book. I personally think everybody should write a book, or everyone has a book in them. The question is, do people buy the book? So everyone has the capability or ability to write a book. It's just a matter of then do people want to buy it. Hopefully people will do that with this book, and that they will also say, I can relate to those characters because I've seen that in my life, or I've had friends in my life that do experience that.
Right, and it's not a coincidence that we're here in this lovely wine room at Rancho Valencia. And so I have to ask you, are we going to see wine and cigars?
Well, I think that would be, just as I've done some research in those areas, I think it would be good to include those as part of the journey that goes on in the book. So I like to think that not everything is a coincidence, and that it was intentional to do this in a fine setting, great wine, and a beautiful view outside. So yes, I think you could probably be safe to assume that you'll see some of those things in these three books. So.
Great. I thought you were recommending that someone read the book with wine in hand.
Well, I hadn't put that in the dust jacket cover, but I think that probably now that you mentioned that for the second book, I can say this book is best enjoyed with a glass of wine. So I also wanted people to take place in places where people could say, gee, that sounds like a place I'd like to go, or a place that I'd like to be, and something that made them feel good.
Great. Is there anything else that you want to talk about before we wrap up today?
It's just been a long process. There's two schools of thought. One school of thought, as I said, people say, well, how long did it take you to write this? And one school of thought is it took about 5 years, I guess. And the other school of thought is it's taken me all my life so far. So depending on which way you want to look at it. I've met some wonderful people along the way that I think were assisting me even when they didn't know they were assisting me. I had people that were assisting me just in subtle suggestion and direction. Certainly, working with the editor, had 9 New York Times #1 best-selling authors to work with. That was a fantastic experience for a couple of years that give you a different insight into keep your story always moving forward. Subtle things that maybe you don't think of the first time around. Editors since then that have been so helpful in how I get my point across. Photographers, just a number of people, friends, certainly first and foremost my wife and dogs put up with me and encouraged me through the project all along. makes a big difference to have friends and such that have been so supportive of what I've done. So this is a lonely process, but people have helped in that process. Maybe not be lonely.
That's nice. That's nice. So one last question. You've mentioned your dogs several times in this interview. What kind of dogs do you have, and what are their names?
I've got a couple of yellow Labrador retrievers, and I can't. The characters might show up in some of the books further, so I can't tell you what the dogs' names are. So you have to read the next book to find out what the dogs' names are. But my wife has been so supportive and really helped with this, and kept me from going crazy sometimes when I just can't quite figure out what to put down. She always tells me, just take a deep breath. I say, just be mindful. So she reminds me that it's a good idea too. So.
Great. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much,
my friend.
Appreciate the time. It's great to see you again.
Great
really
to see you and spend some time with you. And we'll just close by saying that I'm Angie Swartz, and this is Edward Cozza. We're here finishing talking about Nowhere Yet, which you can buy online. You can also read more about Ed at edwardcozzawriter.com and join him at Warwick's of La Jolla on November 15th. Thanks for watching.
Thanks so much.